Hello, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. Thank you for joining me for this IPA talk. In this case, we have an IPA podcast. And with me, I'm very fortunate to have for the very first time our State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Carmen Ayala. So, Dr. Ayala, thank you so much for spending a little time with me here. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jason. It's a beautiful day in Springfield and a beautiful day to have a conversation.
Yeah, you bet. Well, it's June 3rd for those that might be listening in, just to give a little context here for the conversation. And so, Dr. Ayala, since this is our first time recording one of these together, love to have the opportunity just to, for the school leaders that maybe haven't had an opportunity to see you. I know you spent a lot of time traveling across the state here in the early months of your time in this position. Talking with folks and getting to know people. But for those that haven't had a chance to get with you personally yet, would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. Well, this is my 36th year in education. Yeah. I keep telling people I started teaching when I was 10 years old.
Right.
36 years. I've been a classroom teacher. I've taught all grade levels from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. Taught general education classes, middle school science, and language arts.
And we're in your office in Springfield, and the train's not far away.
That's right.
If anybody's hearing that in the background.
That's right.
Yeah.
I am bilingual trained, so licensed in bilingual education, ESL, early childhood trained as well. I have an MBA, so I have the school business official licensure.
Yeah.
Feel very comfortable talking budgets and things of that nature. But my passion is on the instructional side. I'm a curriculum auditor from the Curriculum Management Institute. And have a real strong grounding in standards alignment and deep alignment to curriculum instruction and assessment, which happens to be my initials.
Yes, that's right. I never thought about that.
That's right.
That's
CIA, but not on that CIA, on the curriculum instruction and assessment end of it.
Well, it was like you were meant to be in this position.
That's right. Right? So this is my 25th year in administration. Have been central office, all different positions, director, assistant principal, assistant superintendent, and now I have this awesome opportunity to be state superintendent of education.
Yeah, well, that's terrific. Would you mind just sharing for individuals, they might think about, what it's like to be in this position now, especially that you're coming straight out of K-12. Could you just share people a little picture about, what's happening for you and what you're seeing in these first few days that you're on the job?
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a big wow. A lot of similarities with being a district superintendent with, the Board of Education and school code and those kinds of things. But I think the biggest aha for me is really the level of influence that the General Assembly has on the actions that we have to then push down to the districts in terms of bills that become laws, and then we help with the rules and the regs and supporting districts in implementing those. So as a district superintendent, I really didn't realize, I knew it always existed, but I didn't really understand the level in which that is really important at this point.
Yeah. Well, I was just sharing with you before we started recording, this is year 13 for me and end of year 13 for me in this position. And what I didn't appreciate when I moved from being a high school principal into this role is how many players there are in the education space. I thought, well, the legislature will be there, but there are a lot of groups out there that are very interested in what's going on with our kids. And so so that's pretty fascinating when you get into these positions for sure. So I know this is something that you're still formulating for yourself, and as you're, getting a handle on the the vastness of this important position. But, I know people will be very interested from your perspective, even in the early going. What do you see as what's really important for you as state superintendent, for our state, for our schools, for the agency? When you start thinking about what your vision is and could, continue to evolve to be, what are you thinking in the early going?
Well, having come from the ranks, so to speak, I was born and raised in Chicago and went through the public school system, and all my degrees are from Illinois universities. I think I have a pretty good grasp on all the challenges that districts are facing, and all the wonderful things. I've been really just so blessed in hearing about all the just great things that are occurring out in our state. And so I hope to have the pulpit in a way that I can highlight those wonderful, great things, elevate the teaching profession. The teacher shortage area is one area I know we're going to talk a little bit about, something that weighs heavily on my mind. But as I mentioned, I have a strong background as a school business official as well as in the area of instruction, and I always look for ways to marry those two, so to speak. And so the evidence-based funding formula is something that I'm just really, really excited about, because it addresses two very key areas: adequacy, and how much is it that we truly need to educate our children, and to maybe get to that point where we're providing that for every single child in the state of Illinois. But
getting to equity, right?
Yes, but that's the other pillar.
Right.
The other pillar is the equity, which says to me that, children don't come in nice, neat packages of 25. And we're as diverse as our 852 school districts across the state of Illinois. And so equity is something that is very important to me. And so I hope to champion the equity piece, and really just help districts to look at their own communities and their own needs and really maximize everything that we can offer, so that every single child gets what they need and reaches high academic standards.
So you're referencing the funding formula here. Obviously, it's being June 3rd, the General Assembly worked a couple extra days because they had a long list of things to do, and we've had quite a legislative session here, which has been really exciting, I think, to observe, as we've dealt with so many difficulties in the past years, which was very different, obviously, than what we've had this year. Any just quick reactions from your perspective on the work that occurred not too far down the road from where we're sitting in your office here in Springfield?
The Capitol right from
that's pretty inspiring view, actually. That's right cool. There. Yeah, yes. It is.
It's just been really exciting, and more than anything, very positive. That we got, $375 million added to the evidence-based funding formula, and that, we have another additional $50 million for early childhood education.
Right.
And so I think that the commitment to put more resources into education in Illinois is there, and certainly evidenced by the revenues that have been made available by the General Assembly. I think it's an exciting time.
Yeah, even mandated categoricals are getting funded at levels we haven't seen for a long time. So it's feeling like we're getting a lot of the holes that we've had plugged up here now, and then the additional funding. But don't you think that, with the additional resources, we have to have a stronger sense of responsibility now, the work that we're doing moving forward here, and knowing what that evidence-based formula really should be doing for our schools. So you got any sense of that, of what do we do as educators now in the field, knowing that over the last 3 years, they've worked to put almost over $1 billion more money into our schools. So what do we need to be doing with that, do you feel?
One of the things that will be coming out in our report cards this year is the expenditure reporting piece, which is something new, where we will be able to see the average per pupil expenditure in a district, and then list all of the schools in that school district and each school's average per pupil expenditure. And that's a way to take a look at equity. Do some schools receive more than others? We have to pay attention to not only the base funding minimum, but we also have to pay attention to those three other buckets, if you will, that were identified: low income, children with special needs, and English learners, and the additional dollars that are going towards those particular populations of children, to make sure that the additional resources to meet their needs are also there. And so the professional review panel is looking at the spending plan, which is also something that is a part of the evidence-based funding formula, and how we can really be transparent and really look at how our funding decisions are impacting instruction. And so that will be more transparent, and more support for districts will be provided to have those kinds of conversations.
Yeah. So we could spend a lot of time on money, obviously, and funding. It's obviously really critical. But I know something for the IPA membership, for school leaders, that they're really concerned about, particularly as they finish up one school year and plan for next, is making sure that they've got adequate teachers and staff. And you referenced the teacher shortage weighing heavy on you. So what's kind of the status of things? What's the agency engaged with right now on tackling really what some people are qualifying as a crisis, and maybe it would be such that we can do that. There's a lot of trains running through this afternoon.
It's a busy place.
No kidding. But seriously, what are your thoughts with that, and what are some things that we could be doing?
Well, we know that the teacher shortage issue isn't something that was created overnight.
Right.
And it isn't something that is unique and special to Illinois. We're facing a teacher shortage across the nation. But let's focus on what we can do here in Illinois. Currently, our agency staff is combing through all of the rules and regs to take a look at language that can be interpreted, potentially revised, that would help open up opportunities for more creative ways of assigning staff to different positions. So, for example, we know we have the birth to grade 3 or grade 2, then we have the 1st through 5th grade, then we have the middle school, then we have the high school. And since we've been in districts and in schools, Jason, I know that you and I have experienced times where we may have had an upper elementary teacher, let's say middle school, who we knew was a phenomenal fit to our 4th grade need that we had, but we couldn't find someone to fill that position, but we couldn't use that middle school certified teacher to put in that 4th grade classroom. And so we're looking for ways of how we can open up those opportunities, if anything, for a period of time, maybe not permanent, until we can gain a better handle on the teacher shortage. There are some things that are in the rules and regs that there are current flexibilities that maybe districts aren't as aware of. For example, educators can earn a short-term approval to teach in a different subject if they have 9 semester hours or if they pass the content area test. And we've been finding, as we're talking about the teacher shortage issue, that a lot of districts may not have been aware of that, and that may open up some flexibilities. So we're looking at those areas within our rules and regs that we can put out there to just reinforce, reaffirm, say it's okay, you can do this, to help with some of those decisions. Those are some short-term ways that we can address teacher shortage, but there are some long-term alternative approaches to teacher preparation. And so we're advocating for additional funding and looking for ways where we can provide funding to help with induction and mentoring, to help elevate the profession in the eyes of the public. We will be convening a group in June to specifically talk about some of these long-term solutions. We're getting a lot of feedback from the field, from principals, superintendents, and other educators. In April, our Board of Education spent a great deal of time during their board meeting hearing hours of testimony from the field, and we are looking at lots of different ways that what I'm finding is that there are many activities going on throughout the state, partnerships between districts and universities. But I think we need to find a way where we can all come together on a couple of really good, solid initiatives and work towards those. Instead of having these isolated attempts, we're all working really, really hard, but maybe there's a way we can come together and level a lot of that energy into something that could really have a big impact on teacher shortage. We do have a diverse teacher committee. It's comprised of about 24 individuals. 3 of those are students. And so that is beginning to address the diverse pipeline. We know that over half of our students in public schools in Illinois are children of color, and yet the staff does not reflect that. So that's one piece of it. But if you flip the coin, the work that needs to be done with our current staff, and we have phenomenal, just really dedicated staff who maybe need more understanding, more tools, more engagement with how to work with children who look like, sound like, different than they do. So we have to address the diversity piece from, I think, those two perspectives.
Well, what you mentioned here on multiple fronts, we have to kind of deal with the short term, what needs to be done immediately and doing as much as we can, but also have a long range view for it, because it's going to really take both. Because we have kids, they need these people now. I think about my own children in school right now. They can't wait 15 years for solutions, for the next pipeline, crop of teachers to come through. However, we do have to be mindful of the way things are continuing to evolve and change.
An exciting bill that passed, and it's currently waiting for the governor's signature, is the removal of the requirement for basic skills. And I think that, I know of individuals, I'm sure you probably know of individuals, most people know of individuals who have met all of the requirements, are outstanding people just ready and waiting to get that teaching job, but they can't because they can't pass the basic skills.
Absolutely.
And we know that they've gone through an entire teacher preparation program,
and
some of them masters, and assessed and have shown that they are able and capable, but maybe they took, the Pythagorean theorem 20 years ago or something like that. So I think that is going to open up a lot of opportunities for people who are ready. And I hope that would help.
Well, that's been a particular roadblock for our diverse educators there, potential educators, where we need to do some work with that. Well, and I'll just say, speaking, selfishly for the association's perspective, obviously we're very concerned about the lack of teachers today and what that means for the impact of leadership, in these formal leadership positions like the principalship down the road. We're already hearing about, the lessening of the pool of who's currently available, and that only right now could potentially get worse if we don't improve the number of educators that we have available to us in the teaching corps. So let's pivot to the last thing I wanted to briefly touch on with you. I know dealing with the last days of session plus the teacher shortage issue have been high on your mind, but I know you're doing some work related to ESSA right now and looking at the current status of the plan and possibly some revisions there and just continued implementation, which seems to be going pretty well overall. But just curious about where we are currently with ESSA and what we can look forward to down the road.
Well, at this last board meeting in May, our board, State Board of Education, took action on two changes to the Illinois ESSA plan. The first one, the board voted unanimously to remove the requirement for calculating the reporting of grades for growth.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear that.
Yeah, so am I. Yeah, we have the determinations, the highest performing, lowest performing, commended, and all of those designations. There really wasn't a need to add on top of that a grade, and so that will not be happening. That will not be on the school report card, and that's exciting, and I think it's a great move. The ISBE and the board still remain committed to growth and committed to high standards and those kinds of things. But I think that there are ways that we can really uplift our schools, and instead of being called lowest performing, we can say approaching or using different kind of language to really help reflect. Yeah. Because there is a lot of good things happening in our schools, and we need to give schools credit for those kinds of things. The other area that the board approved was the redistribution of the weight of the college and career readiness and the fine arts indicators. That was actually feedback from the U.S. Department of Ed that we couldn't do it in the way that it was placed initially. And so with the IBAM group, the weights are going to be distributed proportionately. And I think that seems fairer. So there won't be any weighting in the college and career indicator and in the fine arts until at which time we do have those pieces in place and ready, and then they will be incorporated into the accountability matrix. And I think that's the fairest thing to do. Currently, I think we just finished up with ESSA listening tours, and we were wanting to hear from the field their thinking about the overall weighting of the academic versus the student success indicators. And we know that we're required to have over half be dedicated to the academic indicator, but is that 51%? Is it 65%? Is it 90%? We've been doing this for a year now, and I think that it's always good to kind of go back, reflect, and reassess. And that's what the listening tours are doing. The other area is looking at the weighting of the individual indicators. There is an assessment policy in place for newly arrived English learners. And we have learned that there are some other options that Illinois can take. And so we're asking the field, what would be the best option when assessing our English learners? Because we know that those scores count on the accountability, and we want to make sure that it truly reflects what our students know and can be able to do, not the fact that they don't have enough English to tell us in a test they don't understand. And then the designations. Should we have the 4 designations? Should we whittle that down to 2, to 3, to 4, to 5? And what should we call those? So those are real important feedback points that we're collecting from the field. I think the tours have ended, but individuals can still send in their feedback through the ESSA at ISBE.net. And so we really take a look at the feedback and really want to hear from the field. It really does matter.
Yeah, agreed. And we're grateful for that everybody does get an opportunity to respond if they would choose to do so. I will tell you the running joke there, when the initial listening tour was happening, when the plan was first being formulated, that there would be a T-shirt for the listening tour. So, I'd be very curious about a shirt for the, is this the follow-up tour or whatever? But anyway, so just some fun with that. But, well, as you think about going into the summer, the year ahead, just anything you would want to personally share with school leaders, and thank you. This was really rich, just hearing your perspective on what's going on with the General Assembly and the budget and the teacher shortage, ESSA. Of course, I look forward to having many more of these kinds of conversations in the years ahead. But just anything from your perspective that you feel like school leaders might be interested in hearing.
First of all, thank you for this opportunity and for coming out and putting up with the train and
That's quite
those
all
kinds
right.
of things. But I'll make up for it with the view of the
That's
Capitol
right.
building.
That's beautiful.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm one of the teachers. I'm one of the building administrators. I'm one of the district administrators because I've walked in those shoes.
Right.
And so I hope that my leadership reflects rolling up my sleeves alongside with the colleagues that I've worked with out in the field and doing problem solving together and really making some good decisions that are going to move our students forward in every nook and cranny of the district and the state, and recognizing that we are a diverse state. And so while we may create a framework, we need to create frameworks that allow for that flexibility and that autonomy to be able to meet those unique needs. And so that's probably the biggest message that I have, and that's let's work together.
Awesome.
Let's work together.
Dr. Carmen Ayala, Illinois State Superintendent of Schools, thanks for joining me for this first of hopefully many podcasts. That's great. Again, my name is Jason Leahy, Executive Director of the Illinois Principals Association. As always, if there's anything the IPA can do for you, give us a call or check us out on the web at ilprincipals.org. Take care.